Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy, the dope ass dude, and I am so excited to be here tonight with each of you. And I am so excited about what we're going to be talking about on tonight. So, you already know the usual preliminary things. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you don't mind going ahead, subscribing to the YouTube channel. And then while you're there, go ahead and click on like and notifications so you can be notified each and every time a new podcast is uploaded to the site. And then if you're not following me on Instagram and TikTok, you can follow me on both platforms. I am on both Instagram and TikTok, both the Dope Ass Dude podcast. So again, on both platforms, Instagram and TikTok, you can find me at the Dope Ass Dude podcast. And then if you're on the go, you can always check out the podcast. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, which used to be Google Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And just sending a shout out to those who are on the go for listening to the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Again, that's Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And then, of course, you can watch the podcast each week, Monday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. So again, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. And then if you are not, and actually because Coach Kevin has been on the podcast before, but if you're not following him, you can go ahead and follow him on Instagram and TikTok. On Instagram, he is Join the Royal We. And on TikTok, he is the Royal We Official. So again, on Instagram, Join the Royal We. On TikTok, the Royal We Official. And then you can also follow his channel on YouTube. And on YouTube, his channel is the Royal We. So you can get there, and from there you can set up counseling sessions with Kevin. He has so much valuable and helpful content on all of his platforms. So if you decide to just join one of the three, trust me, you will leave wanting to be healed, wanting your life to be better, and you will be wanting to break free from whatever you may be encountering. So, as you know, Kevin has been on the podcast before. He came on like a year or so ago. And when he came on, and how I found Kevin, I was looking on YouTube and I came across one of his videos. And like I shared with you guys, I ended up watching like 10, and that 10 led to 20. And I can guarantee you probably now I've watched over 100 of his videos because he is constantly pushing out information that is relatable, that you can see yourself in. And then if you can't see yourself in, you definitely can see a family member or a friend or someone, because like I said, it is just a lot of great information. So we're going to go ahead and bring Kevin on out because I want him to tell you guys about himself. Coach Kevin, what's going on, man?
Sean, how are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
It's been too long, man.
I know,
a whole
man.
year.
A whole year, but I've been keeping up with you, my brother.
Oh, that's awesome. It's good to see you. I remember our last conversation that we had. And I got to tell you, man, your intro, everything that's going on, fantastic. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it's interesting, I'm still here doing my thing, helping people through abusive, toxic relationships. I've been doing this now for 7 years, almost 7 years.
Oh, wow.
And I remember probably 3 or 4 years ago, I had some clients that were like, how long do you think you're going to be able to keep talking about this? Because, it's just, is it going to end? And here I am, still at this very moment, this very time, still taking the coaching calls, still working with people who are still struggling with this. It truly is a what do you call it? An evergreen type of a situation. Everybody thinks they know what narcissistic abuse is. Everybody thinks they know what an abusive bad relationship is until they go through it. And then they're like, whoa, I need some help. This is killing me. And so it's one of those things where even now I'm like, okay, will it end? Will there be an end to this? And I don't think so. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you, and I'm grateful to be here every day for people who are struggling and these very difficult relationships, whether it's family or a spouse. I deal with a lot of people in marriages, and also dating relationships. And so it just keeps going on and on and on. And but I'm very grateful that I'm here and that you're here. So thank
Yeah.
you again.
Well, I can answer that question. Will it ever stop? Absolutely not. It will never ever stop. I mean, because I think you have those who know that they're narcissists, and you have those people who don't know that they're narcissists. And then you have those people that are in relationship and they're being abused and they don't even realize what is going on until they hear you or someone else who's talking about narcissism. And then they be like, that sounds like what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
So will it ever stop? Absolutely not. I don't think as long as we're living, people
As
living.
long as we're on this planet. Yep. As long as we live in this rock, it's a part of it. Yeah. I remind people a lot that, and it's really interesting to me, but this place, we have to remember, this earth we live on, never be perfect. Never. It's just I typically take people on a scriptural route, a scriptural journey sometimes because it helps. I don't try to Bible bash people or anything like that. However, it's almost as if people forget in their life journeys, they forget what this place is. It's not the Garden of Eden. We don't live there, right? I remind people, especially people of faith, look, we were cast out of that place to live here. And as far as as far as the Bible's concerned, God says, because of my mercy, I'm going to give you 120 years max in this place. So it's not a good place necessarily. And as much as we try to build up for ourselves and we can do fun things and we can look and strive for our slice of heaven, but I think we're always going to hit that wall where we realize something's wrong. Hey, I got this and I have this relationship and something's off. What's going on? Why am I not at perfect peace, and why do my relationships suck, and why am I facing abusers, and why am I dealing with all this stuff? And so this is going to always be a thing that we are going to be up against no matter where we're at. So my whole hope is that people learn to accept themselves, right? Who we are as individuals, and then navigate this life out of that place instead of trying to follow this person or our parents or our spouse or whomever else. It's almost like we need to come back to this place of who am I? What are my standards? What are my morals? What's my faith? Operate out of that first and then learn how to become judges, really. And I know people don't like that, right? Judge. We're not supposed to judge. We can't judge. We can't judge. You have to judge. If you're not judging people, and you could use whatever word you want, discernment or whatever, but if you're not properly judging your relationships, then you're just going to be led to wherever you may not want to go, right? And this gets into some real dicey, abusive territory in a lot of relationships.
Yeah. So Kelvin, I know it how you got into this. So share with everyone, like, how did you get into, helping people with this narcissism? How did you get there?
Yeah. So I was at the time the mother of my kids. We were married, and we were heavily getting involved with her side of the family. All right, the in-laws. Right, this is where my awakening was. All kinds of things were working together to get us stuck. So first of all, when you're first married, you oftentimes think that, well, I've got to get along with the in-laws. I'm marrying into the family, depending on how you were conditioned. And I had a lot of that conditioning. When I get married, I'm also marrying into the family and this and that. But what I noticed in that dynamic was I was being pulled in, and at the same time, I was getting squashed, demeaned, devalued. They were almost taking this control. And I started to stand against it. The more I was standing against it, because deep inside, I knew this. Hey, I'm a family too. This is my family, and I'm going to have a say here and this and that. And it didn't go very well. So it became very abusive with the in-laws. It was excruciatingly painful. I know that I'm kind of brushing over it, but at that time, I was devastated by their desire to control and then being made out to be this really horrible person because I wasn't going along with. And the more I tried to separate myself, the more attacks started to come on. And I didn't know what was going on. So, like most people, I started Googling, why do my in laws hate me, this and that. Um, and as I was separating, I went to the church to try to get help with the situation. That was an epic failure. Most people who go to church, at least at this time, this was about a decade ago or a little more, the church's stance was, well, you got to keep loving them, right? Just keep loving them, keep showing up, keep being present, keep bringing Jesus into the situation. They need Jesus, and you're going to be the Jesus they see, or whatever, all this nonsense. And I was like, yeah, I don't think you quite understand what I'm saying. These people want to hurt me, right? They're attacking me. And it's a weird fear because I'm an athletic guy. I'm 6'1", and so I'm not like physically afraid, but being in the situation with hostile and aggressive behaviors, it was shocking, number one. And the thought that these people are pulling a fight out of me, that was terrifying in and of itself. And so I started to separate myself, separate my family while I was looking up, why do they hate me, how to get along. The church wasn't helping me out. My friends weren't helping me out. My own family wasn't helping me out, because one of the interesting things that happens with these types of controlling personalities is they will rip on you as a target, but then they'll also go and become friends with your family, with people and they're a totally different persona with them. They're nice, they're kind, whatever. And so when I would go to get help, I'm like, look, these people they're absolute nonsense. They're doing this. That my friends, my siblings were like, oh, well, we don't see it. And so it was getting kind of scary for me. And that's when I stumbled upon narcissism. And like most people, I was watching some videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it. But I still had so much in me. And so I had something to say. So I just started talking. And honestly, I started a YouTube channel because I wanted to talk about the Bible. I named it The Royal We because it was going to be a biblical journey on YouTube. But something said, Kevin, don't talk about the Bible. Nobody wants to hear about that. Talk about what's going on in your life. And my life was just turning upside down. I was a mess. And so I just started talking out of that place. And people were like, oh my gosh, that sounds like my story. So I kept going and going. And then I had a desire to want to talk with people. So I used to put my phone number out on YouTube, which I don't recommend anybody doing that, by the way. I started getting calls all over the country. It got kind of strange really fast. I had people calling me every other day like we were best friends. And from there, I just started to establish this coaching platform to help people stay focused when they call in. And I've been doing that ever since. It's been 7 years and it's still going. There's still people. You can call it an awakening. Whatever they're going through, they're finally seeing it in their spouse, in their family. They're at their wits' end and they need help. And I've been there. I've made it through it. I've come out the other side. Not to say that there's an absence of pain. I've had to accept that in this life, I tell people all the time, you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unhear what you've heard. And when you have to sever ties with family members or somebody you once loved, you carry that with you, right? So one of the big things that I'm helping people understand now is that we are not creatures of subtraction. We cannot go in and pull out all of the stuff from our youth, from our marriage, from whatever that's plaguing us and hurting us from the abuse. But what we can do is we can add into our lives. So I try to work with people to get onto a new path of challenging yourself, doing things, getting active in your career, pursuing the things that you love doing. And then in doing all of this, it starts to make the abuse you've experienced less relevant. So that's the ultimate goal. It's not to take anything out. We can't remove the pain, right? People are like, Kevin, how do I get to where you are? You seem like you're over it and this and that. And typically I'm like, who says I'm over it? I still hurt. I don't do this because there's no more hurt. I do it because there is, but I share it. I share it in a way that's healing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the thing is, and I love when you share that you went to the church and the church answered, and this is no bad reflection of the church. It's just they, because we talked about this on one other podcast. We're quick in the church to say, well, pray about it. Or like you said, love them. You have to love them through this here. But when you're dealing with the narcissist, it's not that simple. Like you said, it's not that easy as just loving them through it or forgiving or extending grace or being compassionate, because this is a different breed of people. And, I guess to the church's defense, because they're not therapists, they're not counselors, they don't, I guess, have the right answers for that when you're describing what you're going through. And sometimes even it doesn't even have to be narcissistic abuse. It could be just physical abuse or what mental abuse or whatever kind of abuse it could be. They give you the answer, pray about it or love
Right.
them through it and that kind of stuff. And some situations, yeah, you need some additional help with that.
Well, I've had to distance. Yeah, I distance myself from the churchianity, right? And again, and I appreciate that you said, listen, it's not a slam on the church. I believe the church is doing the best they can with what their mission is, but I also let people know, hey, churchianity or the church's mission is to go out and bring in as many people as possible to share the gospel. I get it, I understand, but the problem is this invites everything in. So you go to, and by the way, this is what churches have started to cater to. It's a competition of who can have the greatest rock and roll show before the service and this and that. Well, what are they trying to do? They're trying to be appealing to the world in general. So with this in mind, you have no clue who you're sitting next to in most churches. You can have a whole row, a pew, if you will, and you've got good people mixed with psychopaths and sociopaths and this and that. And the church has a vested interest not in dividing people, because that would just go against the wheel that they have going now that keeps people coming in, and they need that. I mean, they got to pay for their buildings and their rock and roll shows and stuff like this, right? So they're not going to be into a message of division. They're not going to be there saying, hey, watch out for this person, watch out for that. They're not necessarily, they're going to do their best to make everybody feel welcome. And in that, the problem, the consequence, if you will, is that there's a lot of people that can hide in church. There's a lot of abusive people that can go to church and hear how loved they are by Jesus and then weaponize that and go back home and yell and scream and whatever to their kids, to their wife, to their husband, be abusive and say, hey, you're supposed to forgive me. This is the church is okay with me. The church is, you know what I mean? So why aren't you? So I'm not a popular message with most churchy types. In fact, I've had some churches contact me in the past here in the Midwest, and this is the Bible Belt. They realize it's a problem because in most churches, there's divorces are off the chain, right? And Kevin, there's this problem. And one church called me up and I sat down and talked to them and I just laid it out. Look, this is what it is. The world is full of both good and evil, right and wrong. And we're not here to point our finger and condemn them. That's God's place. However, we need to do a better job at helping people to understand that this is real. It's not a game. And who you're messing with and your family, this and that. I go back to the story of Cain and Abel. It's almost as if the church has forgotten this concept. I mean, that sets the precedence for everything, because I was that person. I was like, in my own prayer life, when I was dealing with the in-laws, I remember I was crying out to God saying, hey, listen, this is family. We're supposed to get along. What's going on? It's not supposed to be this way. And the message to me was, Kevin, go back and read the story of Cain and Abel. What does that tell you about family? Right? I mean, these are two brothers. And there's a lot in that message that, a church doesn't like to touch. And what's in it is that Cain had, by his nature, had nothing to do with his upbringing. Him and Abel were brought up, but he had a different nature. He had a different motive in his life than Abel. And so not only did he kill his brother Abel, Cain did, but God was not able to talk sense into Cain. And that is profound, right? So here we are, we're people, we think that we can work with narcissistically abusive people. We think we can pray for them. We think we can go to counseling with them. We think that we can do marriage intensive, emergency save my marriage retreats. And there's a story where God's message is screaming out loud. You cannot rationalize with somebody who has this motive, this intention, this nature. And so people are stuck. Well, what do I do? The church says I have to love them. I feel like I should love them. Otherwise, I'm a bad person. Well, I believe the story exists so that we don't have to be able. So we don't have to have our life cut short. We don't have to have things taken from us. We can venture out and say, okay, I see you. I see where you are, your motive, the hostility, the anger. This is not going to end well. So you go there. I'm going to venture this way, right?
Yeah. Wow. And Yolanda said, this is so true. Use discernment and don't turn a blind eye when being shown things. And this was something that I smiled at too. Tyson said, rock and roll shows. You said that early. That is too funny. Yeah, they want it.
Well,
They want the
and
record.
here's the real kicker. I was a part of that. So what most people don't know is when I was dealing with the narcissistic abuse, I was on the worship teams. I play bass. I was on the worship teams for some big churches in California, and I don't say any names, and I really believed that, I felt the spirit, this and that, and we're up there rocking and rolling. The lights are going, the smoke is going, hands are all up in the air, and I really felt it. But a part of this really helped me to understand something too, as I've grown in my own relationship with God. It's that I was caught up in the sensationalism, which I believe church has done a good job. They foster people's emotions and the sensation of it, and it feels good. And when you withdraw from that, that's when you really see where your faith is. When you're just committed to drawing close to God, aside from all the hands raising and the soft ambient music and the tears flowing and this and that, we have, because of modern churchianity, really over sensationalized God. In other words, we've portrayed Jesus as this person who's just crying all over everybody and we're all hugging him, this and that. And that's not biblical. That wasn't Jesus. He wasn't there having group hugs and crying with everybody and this and that. It was real straightforward. And when you really draw close to God on your own, you're going to look at the Bible in a different way. You're not going to see the hold hands and kumbaya and love and cry over everybody and get all warm and fuzzy. You're going to see the warnings. You're going to see Jesus say, don't throw your pearls to the swine, because they'll trample it under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces, which is what narcissistic people do, right? It's chock full of warnings about living in this life. But again, church has a hard time of really expressing these because it's divisive. But I think that it's built up to this time where we live now. In this era, I believe that this is the era of division. I really do. I think we've seen it. And through all kinds of things, through COVID, through whatever, the political differences, we're starting to see, whoa, okay, no. We're kind of being separated. And by the way, Jesus said this, I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. I'm going to separate father from son, mother from daughter, families, this and that. And it's really interesting. I don't think people, even modern Western church, really understands or understood that particular scripture to the point of letting it be okay. People need to separate from their families. People need to separate from even somebody they married because their life is in danger. They're perhaps they're almost getting there, but not quite. Still kind of fearful of what it's going to do to the church in general. Is it going to fall
Mhm.
apart? People going to leave? Well, what's interesting is I think people are leaving on their own anyways, because everybody's having this kind of awakening. Most people are, if this
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Perfect sense. Quee says, "Hey JP and Kev, I lived with a narcissist partner for 6 years. It's hell too." Yeah, those are different type of
It is.
relationships. So Kevin, before let's go ahead and let's get into it. So what is a narcissist? What is narcissism?
What is narcissism? What a very what an interesting question. So there is the clinical diagnostic narcissistic personality disorder. However, most people aren't going to fall into that. Most narcissistic people aren't even going to be diagnosed. So anytime somebody says to me, Kevin, what am I dealing with? Am I dealing with a narcissist? Am I dealing with a psychopath? Am I dealing with a sociopath? Or are they just a jerk? Right? My response is, what does it matter? What does it matter? If you want to know if they're a narcissistic person because you think that gives you permission to finally stand up for yourself and do what you got to do, I'm on board. So for me, the word narcissism just gives weight to the reality that there's a huge difference between me and that person. There's a difference in our nature, whether they're hostile, violent. By the way, there are lots of personality types that are more hostile, aggressive than others. And I don't necessarily think that that is a bad thing. It's a bad thing when it's in the wrong relationship. And see, we were never taught. We were never taught to first accept our temperament, who we are, and then properly judge the person we need to be with. And so we have a bunch of people who are empathic and loving and kind together with somebody who's mean, domineering, aggressive, hostile, violent, right? Because we all believed, oh, well, we're all the same. We all have the same heart. We're all just people, until you realize you can't look at it that way anymore. Because if we're just people and we all have the same heart, then why are they hurting me physically and mentally and emotionally? Because I don't want to do that to them. Why are they doing that to me? So when it comes to this, it doesn't matter if you call them a narcissist, a psychopath, a sociopath. All that matters is are you safe? Are you, well, safety aside, safety is a huge issue. Are you the best version of you? Are you living up to who God has called you to be? Do you even know who God has called you to be? Most people don't even know. They're not even aware. They've never taken the time because they've never received the encouragement to receive who they are, their gifts, their talents, their purpose. And so they're in these relationships because they feel they have to. They were led that way. And if it takes a word like narcissism to bring weight to the situation, right? If you need it in order to have permission, then fine, fine. But when we talk about narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, whatever, it just falls into all kinds of characteristics of abuse, mental, emotional, physical abuse, neglect. I deal a lot with marriages. There's wives who, and this blows my mind, but wives who are neglected by their husbands. No sex, no affection, no intimacy. It kind of took the whole stereotypical thing and just threw it out the window. I'm like, for me personally, I'm like, what men would deny their wife sex? That seems strange. But then it helped me to, again, you understand these personality types and what's most important to them. It's not love, it's not connection, it's not equality, it's control. It's being dominant. And so I've had to learn that even within these types of men out there that I guess we would put into the narcissism thing, uh, anytime there's a wife that wants affection, intimacy, sex, that desire that they have challenges the control of that controlling personality. And so they'll put it down and they'll bury it. And it's just crushing, as it should be, as it should be. And so it's I hope that answers the question. I know they wanted to know, you wanted to ask what is narcissism. I think that it's just important to understand, just to summarize it, from my standpoint, there's the clinical narcissism, but then there is just the reality that we are all finding ourselves mixed up in relationships that we should not be in. And anything that you're not going to resonate necessarily with, or you're going to be experiencing abuse in, mental, emotional, physical, you're going to have to call it something in order for you to stand back and look at it properly.
Yeah.
And so this is where we tie in narcissism.
Yeah, and I love how you said that if it puts weight on it, because I think that's what people want.
Mhm.
They, if their person is not a narcissist, they can make concessions for the treatments that they're receiving. But if they're narcissists, we hear that you can't change this person. They're going to stay the same. So, oh my God, I need to walk away from it. But it doesn't matter if they're a narcissist or not. If you're being mistreated in your relationship, you need to walk away from it or get help or counseling or something. And if you see that it's not going to get better, get out of it. Because, like I said, I love how you said if that's what it takes for you to move on from an abusive relationship, if you have to put that weight on it and call this person a narcissist, then do it, because
Right.
you need to get out of that.
Right. I was, my dad left when I was 4. My mother remarried to my stepfather, who was really abusive, mentally, emotionally, verbally, to my mom and to us. And so I grew up watching this, and I remember that what my mother was hearing was that he has a temper. He can be a jerk, but it's okay. Right. And so so my mother stayed in that for 10 years, enduring all the verbal abuse, the neglect, the rejection. She had nobody to say, get out. It's a narcissistic person. This concept didn't exist back then,
Mhm.
not in a serious way. Right. So even the church didn't even help my mother. I remember I went with my mother to a church service. I must have been 15 years old. And I grabbed my mother because she was crying there in the church. And I walked her up to the pastor, straight to the pastor at the end of the service. I just bulldozed through all the people. I wanted to get to the main guy that gave the message. And I'm dragging my mother behind me. She was in tears. And I remember watching them. And my mother was just in tears, like over this relationship. And the pastor says, I know it's hard. Life can be hard. And this was it. There was no get out of this. There was no, save yourself. This is not what God has for you. You believe this is what God has for you? People don't realize this, but your marriage, your intimate relationships is supposed to be your place of peace. If we're going to fight and we're going to go through stress and turmoil, it's going to be in the world so that we can eat, so we can survive, so we can do work. I mean, that's where our war is, right? But if you come home and you don't have peace, you're going from fighting in the world to now fighting at home. And this will kill you. This is where people start getting diseases and sicknesses and illnesses and autoimmune disorders, all stress related, anxiety related. And it's like that's the message. You have no peace, right? And so I try my best to help people understand, just go back to the basics. What's the purpose of a relationship in general? What's marriage especially, but what's the purpose of any relationship? It's to be helpful. The purpose of a relationship is to find a suitable helpmate. I mean, that's the story of Adam and Eve, right? God said, let us make a suitable helpmate. Adam needed help. So the relationship is that of a helpful relationship. It's two people helping each other to be the best versions of themselves, to be the best versions as far as morally, as far as work goes, as far as everything goes. But it seems through our culture and society, we either forgot or we were never taught how. We were never taught how to find a suitable helpmate, either in friendships or especially in a marriage. Instead, for whatever reason, for God knows what reason, we've been attracted to the opposite. We see something that's different, something that's more aggressive, nothing like us, but we're like, ooh, opposites attract. We feel like, well, they're going to complete me. Wrong. Opposites may look attractive, but it's not sustainable. If you're opposite, you're never going to go anywhere. So it's almost as if people forgot or never really learned what equally yoked is. Equally
Mhm.
yoked in the Bible is two oxen. It's the same animal. And it's not about believing in Jesus. A lot of people think, well, if we believe in Jesus together, we're equally yoked, right? Wrong. Two oxen, which is the demonstration given in the Bible, Jesus is irrelevant in what makes them equally yoked. What makes them equally yoked is that they're the same creature. They're both oxen, right? That's what makes them equally yoked. They move the same, they think the same, they rest the same. It's not an oxen and a buffalo. It's not an oxen and a coyote, because one's going to be going this way and the oxen's going to be going that way. And this has become our lives. And so I'm hoping that as people are hearing this right now, you're starting to reassess what, narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder, because it could just very well be that, number one, you're just not equally yoked, not with family members, not with your friends, not with your spouse. You're a deer and you're tethered alongside to a freaking bear. It's no wonder you're not going anywhere. And then what happens is you got two people pointing each other. You got a bear and a deer pointing each other saying, you need to change. How do we fix you? Well, how's a deer going to fix a bear? It's not possible, right?
Yeah. So we have a question for you already. So
Sure.
Anna asks, do you think this could be really dangerous in Christian dating when the Bible speaks to submission?
Absolutely. Submit to what? Submit to what? Submit to God, sure. Submit in faith, sure, but submit to a person? I mean, and it depends on submitting what? You're going to give up yourself? See, this is part of the churchianity that has caused this. It's lose yourself. Die to yourself. We can't die to ourselves. If you do, you are going to grow resentful and bitter, and you're going to feel like you're dying because you don't even know who you are. It's oppression. It's oppression. In the right relationship, you won't have to submit. It will be a natural. Again, two oxen equally yoked. Are they submitting to each other? No, they're submitting to what they have to do, but they're together. Does this make sense?
Yeah. It's like a compromise almost. Because, like, I think in dating, especially in Christian dating, when it comes to women, the word submission comes up a lot. And I think that is why women now, a lot of women, I'll say that a lot of women, when they hear the word submission, they cringe
Yeah,
because submission is most times meant that you have to, I guess, belittle yourself for someone else or suppress who you are for someone else to be in a healthy relationship to allow him, yeah, suppress yourself to elevate him so he can be a leader, he can be the head, he can be all of this other kind of stuff. And women, a lot of women hate that word submission. They hate it.
yeah. I hate it. A relationship is not about one person submitting to the other. A relationship is equality. It's if you're not being made the best version of you in the relationship, then no. If you're dying to who you are, if you're forfeiting who you are, look, I tell people this. When we leave this world, whatever you believe, right? And you go to heaven, and you're going to face your creator. All right. This to me is, by the way, this is what the parable of the talents means. I believe your creator is going to say, look, I gave you this much love to give. I gave you this ambition. I gave you this passion. I give you this drive. What did you do with it? And I don't think it's going to be a good enough excuse to sit there and say, well, I know you gave me this much love, this much passion, this much drive, but I didn't do it because I submitted instead. I forfeited who you made me, God. I got rid of that for this person. I believe the creator is going to say, who are you talking about? There's nobody even here. It's just you and me. I gave you these things. So you forfeited what I gave you. The calling I had for you. You forfeited that for somebody who's not even here with you? Right? I don't want to be that person. I don't want to stand before my creator. And when I'm challenged and say, Kevin, I gave you this voice, I gave you this desire, I gave you this passion. What'd you do with it? Well, I was in a relationship and my wife terrified me and threatened to take the kids away and was abusive, and so I didn't do anything. I believe I would hear the creator say, you wicked servant. You hid your entire life. You hid who you were. You hid who you were for the sake of another person. So if we're not careful with this whole submitting thing, we're making idolatry out of our relationships. We're taking these people and we're making them as gods instead of submitting to our true creator for those of you who are people of faith.
I love that. I love that. So let's talk about narcissistic parents and family members. How do we deal with those people? How do we deal with them?
Narcissistic parents and family members. Yeah, well, I like to tell people first and foremost, because this is a big conversation. I tell people first and foremost that we have to get rid of the idea that you only get one family in this life. So a lot of people think, well, they're my family. It's my brothers, my sister, it's my mom, it's my dad, and you only get one family, and on and on and on. And as I've grown, I'm like, wow, what a sucky concept. You only get one family, really, and you don't even get to choose who that is. Well, that sucks. And then that's when it just dawned on me in my own spirituality, where God said, no, you don't just get one family. You have a family that you're born into. You do have a family that you have no choice with. But once you reach a certain age, you choose your family. And I like how Jesus really shoved this down people's throats in a scripture. And I don't have the verse off the top of my head, but he was teaching in a church and people ran to him and said, Jesus, your mom and your brother are outside and they want you to stop what you're doing and go talk to them, right? Jesus said, who's my mother? Who are my brothers? Who are you talking about? And he pointed to his disciples, his friends, the people that were with him in the church. He said, this is my mother. This is my family. I'm not going to stop what I'm doing for those people. And I don't think that we spend enough time really just digesting what was being spoken. What Jesus is saying is that your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters should never come before who God has created you to be and what your path, what your purpose, what that is. God will provide family for you. I've learned this. When I was dealing with the narcissistic in-laws, I never had sisters growing up. And so the mother of my kids had all these half sisters, and I was really looking forward to having sisters, and they were vicious. They decided to take out whatever issues, or I don't know, but I left thinking, I don't have sisters, but through the royal we, God has opened my eyes to having sisters. I have sisters all over the world. So I get what this means now. Family's not what you think. Right?
Yeah. And it's funny that you said that, because I just had this conversation with two of my sisters over the weekend. And like I shared with them, that we make a choice to deal with each other. We make
Yeah.
a choice. It's a choice. We can make a choice that, hey, I don't want to deal with you guys. You guys bring drama. You bring abuse into my life. And
Yep.
I don't have to deal with you. And I don't care if we're related through blood and all of this other kind of stuff, because you're bringing this unnecessary havoc into my life. Hey, I have to cut it loose from you. And yeah, it's a choice to deal with family members. And I don't think a lot of people really get that. They feel that loyalty to stay there and take whatever abuse they're getting, take whatever mistreatment they're receiving, only because, hey, this is my blood brother, this is my blood, so this is my mom, this is my dad. No, you don't have to do that.
Well, yeah, right. And blood, again, blood thicker than it. Look, again, Cain and Abel, they were blood, but Cain killed his brother Abel. Blood is not what you think. Again, this gets into the territory of, who made you, right? And a lot of people, when they look at their parents, they're like, well, my parents made me. Well, no, you know, mothers don't make their kids. If their kids get broken, they couldn't fix them. So mothers conceive their kids, but that's different. Mothers conceive children, but something else makes the child, right? And so when we start to understand these things and we realize that we are all individual, something has given us a spirit, a heart, a mind. These things our parents didn't give us. All right. So while your parents and your brothers and your sisters, you may share some strands of DNA that contribute to the color of your hair and, skin or shape or whatever, that's the extent of it. Outside of that, you're completely different. You could have a family of 4. 2 people can be murderers, and 2 people can be empathic healers. It's not up to the parents. Again, Cain and Abel. The extent of their likeness, the extent of what blood did for them was give them the same hair color, right? The rest that you and I are up against is the societal pressure, the churchy pressure, the community pressure that tells us that it's deeper than that. And you have to be involved with mommy. You have to be involved with daddy, no matter what. And I have seen this ruins marriages. It ruins careers. It ruins people's purpose in this life, their passion. Many people don't even develop their passion. They don't even come to pursue something in life because their family that they didn't even get to choose has been put first.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so Dewan said agreed. She commented on that. She said agreed because I'm right there with you. If family is going to, yeah, sometimes, and that is a hard decision because, like you said, community, church, it teaches us put family first. It teaches us, and then of course with the church's greatest weapon is forgiveness. People can treat you any kind of way, but you're supposed to forgive them. Let them cuss you out. Forgive them. Let them steal from you. Forgive them. Constantly taking them back. No, at some point, if a person, regardless of whether they're family or not, if they are not, if they're not adding to your life and they're taking away from it, you
Yeah.
got to go.
Right. I tell people, look, have you ever gotten into debt and with a credit card and you needed debt forgiveness, right? You can get it, right? You exhaust all the money, and the credit card company is tired of calling you, tired of hounding you, so they forgive it. All that means is they're going to stop calling you, they're going to stop bothering you. But are they going to lend you more money? No. So they've forgiven you, but they're not going to mess around with you anymore. So I think that in a way we can kind of adopt this and understand this principle. You can forgive people. Look, I'm not going to chase you down and try to verbally assault you the way you did me. I'm not going to try to beat you over the head with a bat or a frying pan or whatever. I forgive you, but I'm not giving to you anymore. I'm not lending my love, my time, my energy. No, it's gone. and you can never pay it back. Right? So forgiveness, most people are forgiving already and they don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because our image of forgiveness has been twisted into thinking that you have to be able to pour love into them. You have to be able to go and have dinners with them. You have to be able to, go and hang out with them. And if you don't do that, well, you're not forgiving. Wrong. Forgiveness just means you're not going to chase them around and berate them and try to pull answers out of them. No, forgiveness is cutting that off and then being able to stand up and set the boundaries, saying, all right, I see you. You can't give back to me anything I've given to you. So I'm not lending to you in that way anymore. I'm
Mm,
not giving of myself to you in that way anymore. Right?
yeah, I love that. Hold on. So we got one Anna come back. She said, "Can we talk about what is that? Subtle ties, the smooth criminal, the Prince Charming."
Can we talk about the subtleties, the smooth criminal, the Prince Charming? Is this a question talking about me because I got a fur coat on and a cigar? Is that what this is? And no, so you know, I would always say, look, the, certain personalities are great at being fantastic and evil. But it is what it is. You can't separate the two. So if you decide to stay with somebody who's the smooth criminal Prince Charming, well, it is what it is. You're always just going to get that smooth criminal and Prince Charming. So if it's good for you, then fine. If it's not, if the criminal is the forefront, which is typically what happens when people are asking this question, it's like, well, they can be charming, but they're oftentimes very abusive. Well, you have to go with that. You have to go with that. It's wrong to think, well, can I just make them more of the charming? How can I? No, no. It's who they are. Their back and forth personality swap. That's the whole. That's what you're with. A lot of times people will think, well, I just want to wait this out until they're all Prince Charming. But that ain't gonna happen. What you see is what you get in any relationship.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we've talked about that because definitely I want us, because we really gone a while here. This is really good though. So Kevin, how do you break free from free of a narcissist and narcissistic abuse? How do you break free of that? And then I also want to talk about, like, say for instance, you're already out of that relationship, because I don't want to just stick with, okay, I'm in a relationship with the narcissist. How do I get out of it? Say for instance, you've been in one with a narcissist, but you're still dealing with it. You still dealing with the abuse, because we know that abuse, it impacts you a little bit different than just regular abuse or a regular breakup. How do you break free from all the hurt that is left over from a relationship with a narcissist as well?
Yeah. So something I hit on earlier, I'm going to bring this back up. Perfect question. This is exactly where this fits into, but we have to remember that we are not creatures of subtraction. You cannot take out the bad experiences out of your life. You can't unsee what you've seen. You cannot unhear what you've heard. These things have been put in you, in your mind, in your heart, and they're going to live there. Okay? So this is one of the problems I have with counseling or therapy or coaches that are like, well, we're going to take out the gunk out of your life. We're going to get to your inner child and pull out the trauma and the drama and the toxicity. That's you can't erase it. Okay, we're not computers in that way where we can just get in there and scrub the error codes. So there's pieces of the pain that the pain's always going to be there. Okay, but I want to add something to this. There's a good thing to that, and that is that it's going to become your protector. Right? So the pain that you have is going to, in a way, guide you, because your body is not going to want to go through that again, right? Oftentimes, when you come out of a toxic relationship, you end up at war with yourself. Part of you hates part of you. It's like, screw you, dude. You stayed in that relationship getting beat up and you did not leave, right? So there's going to be this part that's going to stick with you. It's the thorn in the flesh. We can't take these things out, but we are creatures of addition. Addition. So we're made and we're designed to go out, new adventures, new purpose, path, whatever. And you add things into your life. And what happens is it starts to stack on top of the pain, right? The things that you're ruminating about. You're not replacing it, but you're burying it. You're making it less relevant, if that makes sense. Right? I've gotten used to just telling people, I had a client just the other night, and she's been just can't stop ruminating, thinking about her mother, how to make that relationship work. She's gone no contact long time ago, but still is just hurting. And come to find out, I'm like, well, what's going on? Well, I'm on a hiatus from work. I'm not working. And well, what else are you doing? Nothing. You're bored. You're bored. And if your body needs certain amounts of biochemistry, adrenaline, cortisol, all these things, if you're going to sit around and just eat chips and watch TV, then your mind is going to wander into whatever it can to grab something that's going to fill it with adrenaline, even if it's thinking about your abusive ex, because it gets you all riled up and you feel it, or memories of your family. And it's going to get you into this place where you're angry and you're fighting and you're hurting, and because your body's feeling something. You can get these same feelings by getting up, put one foot in front of the other, and plan a scary solo trip to some island somewhere for a new adventure. Go get in an airplane and strap a parachute on your back and skydive. You'll be amazed at how your body will transition into, oh my goodness, it's gonna pump excitement and adrenaline and things through your veins again. And it's going to make the memories and the thoughts of the abusive people less relevant, because you are shocking your system and you're challenging your system, and you're telling yourself, I'm in control. I'll give you what you need. You need some adrenaline? Let's go get it. You need some cortisol? You need a reward? Let's go do it. Let's go challenge ourselves. Let's go for that new career. Let's go on a solo trip. Let's go back out and start perhaps dating again. Let's do something. And that's really what it is when you can't stop thinking about it. It's not quite doing enough of what we really are called to do and what we really need to do.
So, Kevin, let's talk about that word protection. So, you said that the good of it is that it can add protection to our life. So, a
Yeah.
lot of times when people hear protection, so it depends on like what stage you are in or what mindset you want to be in, because protection, sometimes people view protection as, okay, this hurt me, so I'm gonna build a wall of protection around me to keep
Mm-hmm.
me from ever experiencing this again. Only thing that does is trap you in it. They don't realize that. But I look at protection as it opens your eyes. It gives you clarity so that when it happens again, you can identify it. So how do you get to the place where it's giving you clarity and not allowing it to become a wall around you that no one can even get to you because you're so engulfed in that wall? How do you get to the right protection, I guess?
Yeah. Well, naturally you're going to. I think, people are going to go through a period of shutting everybody out. When you come out of a toxic relationship and people have hurt you, you do go into this cocoon, if you will. I mean, everybody's suspect. I mean, it's not a small thing when somebody you loved attacked you. Suddenly your trust in people is gone, right? And rightfully so. That makes sense. Your mother, your father, the people who are supposed to love you just about destroyed you. Naturally, boom. I don't trust anybody, right? And a lot of people, and I've been there myself, a lot of people can spin out of control. I spun out. I turned into a downright, conspiracy theorist. I was like, well, if these people who said they love me actually hate me, then what's the government doing? What's the medical industry doing? Did we ever even land on the moon? Is it all just lies, right? I'm surrounded by liars. It's all abuse. And, what they want me to take this, vaccine and this, and I don't want to do anything anymore. And so you're going to get into this place for a period of time where, and it's important, you do need to put these walls up. You do. And for the first time, what it is you're standing up for yourself. And you're able to say, okay, and you're going to develop from that place. You'll start to develop a new way of living to where you're not going to trust people. And that's fine. Two, we're not, who says trust people? That's not a biblical concept. Jesus didn't walk around saying, oh, trust them. Just trust people. No, as a matter of fact, it's the opposite. Jesus trusted nobody. It says it. We, in our culture, in our society, developed into, became these people who trust people into our lives. No, so you're going to learn to no longer operate in that place. You're going to operate through observation. You're going to start watching people more closely. You're going to start listening to how they talk. You're going to watch their mannerisms. It's like you got your spidey senses on heightened alert, and that's fine because we have to. And you're going to start to evaluate who people are, not so that you can put your finger in people's faces and say, oh, you're a narcissist and blah, 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 but so that you can say, how close can we really get? What types of friendship are we going to have? That's it, right? You'll start to navigate this world based on observing people on how close you can get. Can we be friends every now and then? Can we just cross each other's paths, but you're a little bit out there for me? Or, wow, we really resonate. We think a lot alike. And then we can become closer. But it's all through observation.
Yeah. And I love how you said there are different phases of healing, because I think that's one thing that a lot of us, when we're coming out of situations that hurt us, a lot of times we think like, well, I shouldn't be feeling this way because they did me wrong. I should be over them and be glad that they're out of my life. And I should be at this place where I don't care anything about them or whatever. But so we get frustrated with ourselves when we find ourselves still struggling with it and not completely over it. But you have to extend grace to yourself. So what advice would you give someone that is going through the healing process?
If you're going through the healing process, I tell people, look, you're going to hurt. Be okay with that. It's going to hurt. Your body's going to go through transformations. Your mind is transforming. Be okay with that. Your outlook on life is changing. Be okay with that. Your outlook on yourself. A lot of times people, we miss this part, but when we experience abuse, it really causes us to reevaluate ourselves. There's this whole concept of when you point your finger at somebody else, you've got 3 fingers pointing back at you, right? So we can point our fingers at narcissistic people saying, you're mean, you did this to me, and blah, blah, blah. But the 3 fingers pointing back at you are, number one, why did you allow it for so long? Why did you stay? Okay, that's a heavy question. And then there's all kinds of reasons you can come up with. Well, I was told I was supposed to. The church told me I needed to. My family told. The school told me. Society told me. The second finger pointing back at you is, why don't you believe that you deserve something better? Why don't you believe that your relationships, your close relationships, deserve to be with people who care for you? Genuinely. Okay. And then the third finger pointing back at you is, why aren't you able to stand up for what you believe? And by stand up, it doesn't mean, fighting people and putting them in their place and barking them down or whatever. Standing up can simply mean I'm out. I don't need to be here. I don't need this relationship. That's standing up for yourself. So these are the 3 fingers when, we're entering into healing. These things are being addressed. It's a huge change on ourselves. We suddenly are face to face with our limitations. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are. It doesn't matter how Christian you are. It doesn't matter how loving and giving and any of this stuff you are. None of that's going to protect you from abusive personalities. Many of us have bought into this idea that if we're good looking, if we're loving, well, then it's a win. We can win anybody over. We can be in any relationship we want. No. Listen, a lot of people look at the story of Jesus as it's Jesus went to the cross because of his love for us. True. But the other side of that, the message is also this: no matter how good you are, you can want to do nothing but walk around and heal people, teach people, guide people, give to people. And guess what? There's still going to be those that want to kill you. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how good looking you are, doesn't matter how loving you are. So we've got to break that mold of, well, I'm enough to win everybody. And we got to enter into and accept, okay, this world is full of all types: good people, healers, murderers, thieves, rapists, molesters, crazy people. We live here on this earth shared with all of it. So we have to know our limitations. And so this goes back to that question: why do I allow it? If I come across somebody who's not good for me, how long do I allow it and why? Right? Number two, why don't I believe I deserve better? And number three, why am I not standing up for myself by leaving?
Wow. Wow. Kevin, this has been like amazing. And, this is the second time you've come on here, man. And we could still go like another hour because it is so much involved in these type of situations,
It is.
dealing with narcissists. And oh my God, it's so much. So Kevin, so what's next for you? What's happening for you next? What do we have to look forward to?
Well, I put out videos on YouTube still. This year, I want to get out of just being in the studio. I want to travel. I want to go to different cities, maybe do seminars here and there. Maybe I'll come out and visit you. I'm not sure yet. I'm still just working that out, but that's the next part for me. I'm also building a coaching program, and my coaching program, by the way, and this is something I'm excited about. It's not just helping people understand narcissism and heal. I'm going to have a workout program in there. I'm going to have different things because it's become important. Everything that I'm saying, taking the steps. Taking the steps, because you cannot just sit and take out narcissistic abuse from your life. You have to go forward step by step, get active, work out, start to build yourself up who you are in faith, in life, in career, in passion, in purpose, everything. And so that's really what the coaching program is ironing out to be. So I'm excited about that.
Nice. Nice, nice. And guys, it's scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Go follow Kevin on Instagram. He has joined the Royal We. On TikTok, he is the Royal We official. And then here on YouTube, you can follow him there. He is the Royal We. So join the Royal We family. And I mean, when I tell you this guy places so much information out there that can transform your life and that you can go back and watch over and over and over again, because that's kind of like what I did. I several of his videos I watched multiple times because it helped me daily to just stay focused and regain focus in those moments that I lost it a little bit. So let me see here. Willie has a question. What was your motivation for starting the Royal Way?
Oh, wow. Willie. So that's a great question. Obviously my motivation was the pain, but the Royal We was, and I think I mentioned this before, about 10 years ago, I was going to make just a Bible teaching YouTube platform. I had come out of Christianity. Because of the pain and what I've experienced, I dove into wanting to know the Hebraic roots movement, messianic type stuff. And I was just going to share that. I had a conversation with the rabbi, and in the conversation with the rabbi, we were talking about the name of God, Elohim, which is a compound unity. And I remember that it was the rabbi that said it's the royal we. And I grabbed onto that name and I went and I named my channel that. And before I uploaded videos, because again, I was just spun out because of the pain, I was full-blown conspiracy theorist. And I believe that I just heard the voice of God say, just start talking from what's in your heart, start talking from your pain. And so I did. And that's what started the Royal We. That was the inspiration of it. I did not set out to be a coach. I had no clue that that was going to happen. I just started talking and uh, talked from that place of pain. And this is the thing, too. A lot of people will, it's in your pain that you're going to find a voice, right? It is absolutely, I'm a firm believer in that. A lot of people think that they're going to find their purpose and their passion by just seeking out what brings joy and what brings pleasure. Maybe that works for some people, but for me, it was what hurt me the most. And using my voice is what started this whole thing. And so that question of what inspired me, it wasn't a path of joy. I didn't seek it out because I was excited about it. I stumbled into it agonizing in pain. I hope that answers the question.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
hope it gives you hope, right? You can take your pain, do something with the pain, just do something with it. There you go.
Yeah. And thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We will be
Yeah.
back next Monday, 7 p.m. Have a panel of women pastors that are going to be on here. And we're going to be talking about that because there are some people that will not go to a church that have a one female pastor. They
Oh,
are
wow.
just completely against that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So that is going to be pretty darn good next week. So
That is
guys,
awesome.
tune in. Huh?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's going to be good, man. I'm really excited. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, Kevin's information is there on the bottom of the screen. Don't forget to YouTube the Royal We as well. Go out, support him. If you need a counseling session, sign up for one with him. He is amazing at what he does. He's very passionate, and I'm glad for the connection. So, Kevin, thank you for coming on again, man.
Thank you, John. Pleasure being
Thank you.
here.
Yes, sir. Everyone, we'll see you next week. Peace.